So thank you so much for the introduction. I'm so happy that you decided to spend your Saturday morning here, which means that you're curious about this topic, which is very close to my heart as well. So I just want to explain what we are going to do in the next hour or so that we have together. It's not a lecture. I'm not going to lecture, so you can just raise your hand, stop me. It's more like a conversation, and ask questions, please, and share whatever you feel. The idea of this session is for me to introduce what mindfulness is, because there's so many different ideas around it, and I'm sure you have ideas about it, maybe some guesses, or maybe you had the experience. And then what mindfulness is not, because there are also so many funny stories around it as well, okay? Then what is the science behind it? Is it something just up in the air or something which is supported by evidence? How do we practice it? And what benefits does it have for me as a parent and for my teenage child if you have a teenager? So this will be more or less the structure of the day. Now, during this 1 hour, I will invite you to 2-3 very short practices so that we get a taste of what I mean when I say mindfulness, okay? Is that okay with everybody? Okay, perfect. So I just want you just to start, for 30 seconds, you can have your eyes closed or you can have them open. For 30 seconds, think about a blue lion in silence. Just think about a blue lion. 30 seconds. Just the blue lion, nothing else. Okay, so can you tell me what you were thinking about? What happened in these just 30 seconds?
The picture of the blue lion.
The picture of the blue lion came up?
It was difficult to have it blue, but
yes.
The lion first and then the blue.
Okay, great. What else?
So many other thoughts.
So many other thoughts. Like what? Can you share?
I need to call my son. I need to do this. I need to do this.
Yes.
I was also getting a lot of distraction.
Yes.
Thinking about coffee, snacks,
Yes.
weather outside.
Yes, the lion cannot be blue, so the mind is struggling. Anything else? Okay, so what happens in these 30 seconds, I think it's for more or less for all of us, it's a funny thing, no? It's nothing serious because there is no blue lion. But the mind tries to tell us other stories just for 30 seconds, like that this is ridiculous, what does she want to get out of this? Or Janar is thinking about coffee or to pick up my son or whatever. So this is how the brain functions, right? So there was a study showing that every day on average, we have around 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts coming and going. And less than 50% of them are real and useful. The rest is just, you know, it's like you have your phone. When you have so many applications open on your mobile, what happens? The battery dies earlier, so it drains. So the brain, the way it is working for us is that we are thinking about everything, but not the thing that we want to think about. So we have so many open applications at the back of our mind, which is just taking out our energy for what? We don't know. It's just working all the time. So having this short practice, I want to ask you to be mindful of myself, to be mindful of what I'm doing. What does that mean to you? Anything which comes up to your mind. When you hear the term mindfulness, to be mindful, what does it come to your mind?
Controlling emotions.
Sorry?
Controlling emotions.
Controlling emotions. What else?
Comfortable for yourself first. To do everything in the comfort.
Yes, to be comfortable with whatever you're doing.
Just stay in this moment.
Just to stay in the moment. Anything else?
Control your thoughts.
Control your thoughts. Okay, great. These are all actually parts of the definition. So I would say in mindfulness, we try to learn that thoughts and emotions are just mental events. They are not necessarily true. Why? Because at this very moment, you may feel something, you may think about something, next moment, you don't even remember what you were thinking about or what you were feeling. So it's just like a wave. It comes and goes, it comes and goes, it comes and goes. So what happens usually is that we cannot see this and we think that, oh, for this moment, for this very moment, I'm angry. And then I think, okay, I am an angry person. And then the thoughts come afterwards once the emotion is there. Or the opposite, like the vice versa. So what we are trying to do, it's very basic when we talk about it, is to observe these thoughts and emotions in every minute and distance ourselves. Oh, this is anger. Oh, this is this thought pattern that I always have. And then we have a choice to act. Do you follow what I'm saying, or is it just too blurry? It's good? Okay. So this is something that I will always say, that mindfulness is the art of attention. It's the gymnastics of the mind. How many of you go to the gym or do some kind of a workout or had the experience, okay? What do you do when you go to the gym? You move the dumbbells for your body, or you stretch, or you do this and do that, okay? The same thing happens with the mind. We can train the mind and we can train the attention, which means that I can decide where my mind should be at this very moment rather than my mind taking me to places. Has it ever happened to you that you're driving and then suddenly you say, oh, I got to where I wanted to go. I didn't even notice. I didn't see anything. Or I always give the example because, as Janar said, I love coffee. And especially in the morning, sometimes I drink my coffee quite mindlessly. So I have it, and then I look at my glass going for another sip, and I say, oh, the coffee is gone. I didn't even notice that I drank it all. What does that mean? Where was my mind at that time? I was planning something else. I was doing something else. I was somewhere else. Now, you may say that, oh, this is good because I'm multitasking. But multitasking is a myth. Nobody is multitasking. Even if we are, it leads to burnout because the brain cannot be in two places at the same time, okay? This is something that in the corporate world, they are talking about it. So it's better to focus 5 minutes on a task rather than 1 hour thinking about different things. Now, so just to give you some more ideas about what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is educational, not therapeutical. What does that mean? It's not a therapy. So we all have problems in life, right? Everybody is suffering one way or another. So mindfulness is not going to solve that problem, but it teaches us, it educates us how to deal with the emotions and thoughts which come out of that difficult situation. Let's say I had a job interview and I failed. Well, of course I feel disappointed and sad and I don't know. So mindfulness cannot bring that job interview, like that job back to me. That's lost. But how do I talk to myself in that moment of failure, whatever it is? How I can support myself? How I can distance myself from those emotions and thoughts So maybe I'm sad for 5 minutes, but I don't need to be sad for a week. So again, in my classes, always I say we all suffer. The suffering is this much, but the brain tells you stories and makes it this much. It's unnecessary. We don't need to suffer that much. Okay? It's evidence-based. So some people think, or it was maybe in the old days, that it's some kind of a practice that has been designed somewhere. But this is a university course. So the two major mindfulness foundations in Europe, one is the Oxford Mindfulness Foundation, where I did my first training, and there is another one called EMA in Germany. And the biggest, MBSR, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is what I have my specialty in, is in the University of Massachusetts, the medical school. So it's not something which is just up in the air. It's supported by science, and I will go through the science, how it changes the brain structure, okay? It's experiential. I go back to the gym. I give you an example again. If you go to the gym and you pay for the best trainer in the city, you go to the best gym, and the trainer tells you, oh, if you use this dumbbell, this works on your legs, or if you do this, that, and you listen. When you, after a month, or when you leave the gym, anything happens in your body? No. You're very knowledgeable, but nothing happens in your body. Same here. I can lecture and talk about mindfulness. You don't need to be here because there's so many resources out there that you can go and read. You will be knowledgeable about it. Does it affect your mental health? No, you need to do the practice. I'm sorry, yeah. It takes time, and it, like any skill, it takes, so we need to do the dumbbell thing, now here with the brain. The other thing is that simple but not easy. So again, sometimes jokingly, and I don't think it's a joke though, when people ask me, what do you teach? I say, I teach nothing. Because doing nothing, most of us, if they tell us, just sit here for 5 cycles of breath, for just 1 minute, don't think about anything, don't do anything, we cannot do that. Some people go crazy. And this is a big question, that why I cannot do this. So it's very simple. We just want to sit and do nothing. Of course, there's so much happening, but we cannot. So we need to learn how to be. And again, there is another saying which says that we are human being, not human doing, but we are always doing things, thinking that we are achieving something. So even suppose I'm not very much into cars, but I don't know, what's the most expensive car with the best engine, whatever it is, I don't know. Let's say you are one of those cars. Still you need the fuel, right? You stop, you just don't go. So when does my mind get a space to be free of all these emotions and thoughts, which is going on all the time, all the time, all the time? So this is a question that we need to ask ourselves. And then we think, why am I tired? Why the sleep quality is down? Why this, why that? Because, I mean, even if you're the smartest person in this room, you still need to give it a break every now and then. And that's what mindfulness is promising us. I put it here, not an escape. Some people think that, oh, it's an escape. There is so much to do out there, and there is these work problems that we all need to solve. And what do? You just sit and like, what's the point? So the thing is that most of the time we are thinking about what we want to do and what should be done rather than going and take action. So the idea is, if you can do something right now, go and do it. If you can't, focus on what you're doing now rather than being just everywhere, because it doesn't work. Are you okay so far? Is there any question or anything any comments or opposition, whatever? I mean, you can just share. No? Yes, please.
When you
not to do anything. Yeah.
To think about nothing, not to think. But for example, isn't it good for the brain? Like, for example, you're curious, you're telling me something, or you're doing something, or looking at something, even at the plant, and there should be like thoughts. For example, why it's this color, or why it's growing that way, or this big,
Yes.
or something.
Yes.
I thought
That's
it's
a-
normal for the brain to,
Yes,
to
absolutely.
bring up the ideas or thoughts all the time.
Yes. That's a perfect comment. That's the nature, as you said, that's the nature of the brain to think. That's absolutely right. We have a mind because we need to, if I didn't have a mind and if I couldn't think, I wasn't here today because I didn't know what's going on. You were not here. The idea is that if I'm looking at the plant, as you said, a nice flower, and thinking, oh, what color is this? Where do they, how did it grow so big or whatever? I just think about that. But the thing is that I am looking at this flower and my brain is telling me, let's go to the other part of the garden and see what's happening. So the idea is to be in that moment and enjoy, to be involved, exactly, to be engaged in the experience. Because what happens is that I go for a gouliat in a garden, I'm looking at all these beautiful things, but I don't savor anything. I don't let anything settle in my body, in my mind, so that I enjoy. That's why that's what science again says. When you're mindful, you savor, you taste every moment, and then you go to the next, and you go to the next. So it doesn't mean that we don't have any thoughts. I mean, it's impossible, fortunately or unfortunately, but I don't know if I could answer your question, okay? So now, what the evidence is telling us is that, and if anybody is interested, later on through Janar, I can share some links about the research behind these claims. So it reduces rumination. Rumination is like, again, as we said, my brain is always talking to me. There is always a voice. And it's another topic, there's something called negative bias, that our brain always goes for the negative. I give the example of, let's say you throw a nice party, a lot of work, okay? Everybody is happy. But there is only one problem with catering. And while you're going to bed, you're thinking about that problem which happened with the catering, not everything else that went well, right? And then you ruminate, you go through it, you eat yourself up for that, yeah? Yeah, you're laughing because it happens to all of us, right? Yeah. Then it reduces the stress. How does it reduce the stress? Stress is rarely the quality of the present moment, which means that I am sitting here. Is there anything wrong with me or with my family at this very moment? Thank God, none. Now, the moment my brain, like my mind takes me back home while I'm here and I'm thinking, oh, is my son okay? Maybe something is happening. Maybe something is not happening. Something comes up. Either I am conscious or not conscious. Is anything really happening? No. But the brain starts telling me a story, okay? The mind is a big storyteller. That's the fact for all of us. Or, as I'm sitting here, I just go back to an experience that I had like 3 weeks ago. I had a taster session and it went really bad. What if today is going to be bad? You see? Back and forth, back and forth. So just think about everything which gives you a stress on a daily basis and ask yourself, was the element of stress present as you were thinking about that stressful imaginary event? No. So how does mindfulness again help us? It anchors us to the present moment. So the mind doesn't go to the future or to the past. It boosts working memory. Again, when we are focused on something, we have a better working memory because we are really absorbing what is happening. increases focus, I think that's pretty clear, and less emotional reactivity. And this is the biggest thing for me. So all of us, we have some certain patterns in our mind, in our brain. Okay, and I want to ask you to get involved in an imaginary scenario with me now. Suppose that you're walking on the street, okay? And then you see somebody that you know on the other side of the street. You get excited and say, "Hi, Samaneh," and I just go. I don't say hi back. I don't know if this has happened to you before. If not, just imagine that for a minute. How do you feel at that very moment? So I want us to be very clear. What is the emotion that you experience in that moment? Not the thought. What emotions you feel if this happens to you? You feel down? What emotions do you have?
Angry, maybe?
Angry? It could be anything. Just share if you would like to.
Frustration.
Irritated?
Frustration.
Frustration? Okay. These are emotions. What thoughts go through your mind at that very moment when this happens? What do you think? What's wrong with her?
What did I do wrong?
What did I do wrong? What else?
What's wrong with the person?
What's wrong with that person? What else? I may say, did I say anything last time we met so that she's not responding? Anything else?
I'll think that she's busy with something. I'll think that she's busy with something more.
She's busy. Maybe she's busy with something. Great. And the last question is that whatever emotion and thought you have at that moment, how do you feel it in your body? Do you feel it in your body? I'll give you an example. If there are people around, because for me, the emotion will be shame. I think, I said hi and people think that I'm crazy. So I get blushed, like I feel the heat on my face. How do you experience that in your body? Yeah, stress. Where in your body you feel the stress? Yes, in your chest. Tension here. Blood pressure goes up. Wow, that's serious. I mean, it was just a high. So,
The conclusion is don't say hi to people.
yes, unless you make sure that they say hi back. Yes. So the idea of this, of this scenario is that depending on our previous experiences and the way our brain works, because we have certain neural pathways which have been formed in our brain, we interpret the same situation differently. Like Amira says, maybe she's just busy. I say, what did I do wrong? Somebody says, what's wrong with him or with her? And then we experience the same thing in our body, right? At the level of emotions. Now, what does it tell us is that our perception of whatever is happening around us is very much dependent, unfortunately, on what we have experienced before, but not what is real now. So again, through mindfulness, when I can see that how I feel in every single moment, then I don't get stuck in the interpretation that my brain has of an idea, of an event in the past. So I can have a fresh look, right?
Unbiased.
Unbiased, exactly. So I don't get stuck with that negativity bias, or they call it implicit bias, the bias that you're not even aware of because it's part of your brain functioning now. The other thing is that always in mindfulness practices, we work at 3 levels: bodily sensations, emotions, and thoughts. So usually when you ask people, what do you think, they are quick to answer because we want to be intellectual. You know, intellectually we are trained. I mean, we go to school, nobody teaches us about emotions. I mean, the younger generation, they are much better, but in my generation, it was just emotions, keep it for yourself. Don't be a drama queen. That was what we were told, right? So we work on how to separate all these because these are important. And the most weird one for 99% of people is that, how do I feel it in my body? Bodily sensations are important because once I'm aware and connected to my body, I can see the signs of a stress in my body before I take action. I know that, for instance, when I'm under stress, there's something in my throat. So the more I do the practice, I know that, okay, when I feel something here, Samaneh, it's time to pause. You know, it's here, there is a choice. I can still slap somebody on the face, or I can say, okay, this is an action which is originated from my anger. It gives me clarity. And believe me, even when you kill somebody and you're aware that you're doing it because you're angry, it's a different thing for your mental health compared to when you kill somebody. It's a very radical example, I know. And after that, you say, why did I do that? I mean, it was not necessary. Because I was just stuck in the thought patterns in my brain, right? And then once so we are not that reactive, hopefully. And then more cognitive flexibility. It means that, again, back to the example, I can give myself some flexibility, some choice about what my emotions are telling me or what is happening around me, okay? Now I want us to practice one more short practice. This is called the square breathing, or they call it box breathing. You can just have a look, I will explain, just for 1 or 2 minutes. And again, all these practices are invitations. If you don't feel like doing it, please don't do, okay? So you can just look at this simple square and memorize it, or you can just keep looking at it. You can close your eyes or just keep looking at it. The idea is that in silence, you breathe in for 4 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4. You hold it for 4 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop, 1, 2, 3, 4, and again. So 4 seconds, breathe in. 4 seconds, hold. 4 seconds, breathe out. 4 seconds, hold. Are you happy to do? Yes. Let's do it. Okay. How did it go these 1 minute or so? How was the experience? What happened in this 1 minute, if you want to share? It's very calming. We get to the physiology of it. Okay.
It was challenging at the beginning
Mm-hmm.
to keep it within 4 seconds. And then it was okay.
Great. Yeah, anything else? Okay. It clears your mind, yeah. So that's right. It's challenging because by nature, the mind wants to tell us do something else. This is ridiculous, da 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 da, or go think about something. And it's a new language that the brain is trying to learn. So of course, it's challenging. So just before I move to what happens in the brain that we feel relaxed, or how mindfulness can change the brain functions, use this whenever you have time, especially at the time of stress. Whenever you remember, just sit with the breath the same way. It's very simple, 4, 4, 4, 4. So, and see what happens in your body. And especially again, if you are in a difficult situation, you want to go for a difficult talk or whatever, give yourself 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, no matter how much, as much as you can. Now, what happens in the brain? So, just the structure of the brain. We have this prefrontal cortex and we have amygdala. I'm going to keep it very simple. So, prefrontal cortex, they call it the new brain. Amygdala, it's called the old brain. Which means that as primitive human beings, this part was smaller and this part was bigger. As we developed as humans, this part got bigger and this part got smaller. That's why it is called old brain and new brain. Now, the thing is that amygdala is responsible for our primitive reactions, which means that imagine when we were living in caves as primitive human beings. What was happening? Another tribe was attacking us, or a lion was coming to our cave. Amygdala was needed at that time to go. We have 3 basic reactions. They call it fight, flight, freeze. If I have the power, I fight the lion. If I don't have the power, I flee, I escape, right? So these are just by instinct. Or maybe I just freeze. I don't know what to do. So this is called reaction. So keep it here. What happens in the prefrontal cortex? This is the part responsible for emotional regulation and response. There is a huge difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is just primitive, and it is needed. If somebody attacks me at my home, I cannot be mindful and think what to do. Of course, either fight, flies, or freeze, right? So there is a huge body of research showing that over time, people who practice meditation or mindfulness, the prefrontal cortex gets bigger and the amygdala gets smaller, which means that the brain is more functioning in this area rather than here. Going back to the example of I have a fight with somebody on the street, instead of thinking like the primitive human beings, like fight, flight, freeze, I need to do any of these, I can get connected to my emotions, I can regulate my emotion, and response means I'm aware, I'm mindful of what I'm doing, okay? So this is what happens. This one gets smaller, this one gets bigger. And the other thing is that when we are always under stress because the brain is used to centuries ago of like a stress of the lion, another tribe, or a thunderstorm or whatever, we activate this part instead of this part. When I'm connected and in control, this part gets strengthened. So that's how we support the brain function through the practice over time, of course. Now, back to response versus reaction. I guess that you're all parents here. Is that right? Okay. So I just want to bring whatever we have talked about into the context of what it means to be a mindful parent. And then, of course, then I get to the teens and the kids part. What does this picture tell you? Yes. How does it relate to us? We are.
Yourself first, and then someone.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the thing is that it's very, exactly, it's very, it's close to impossible that if I don't know what's happening with me emotionally at every moment, if I cannot respond and I'm always reacting, there is a low chance of understanding what and teaching my kid to have some kind of an emotional regulation. So you don't need to share, but I just want you to think about a conflict or some kind of an argument that you had with your kid. And at that very moment, ask yourself from what position I was dealing with the situation. Was I aware of what was happening within me? I give you an example just to make it clear for you. My son is very young. I have a long way to go. I have a 4-year-old. So there are times that it's difficult to even deal with him. So imagine that we are in a play group and he misbehaves. At that very moment, I'm pissed off. But the question is that, why am I pissed off? So the thought pattern which might go in my brain is that what other people might think of me and my kid, right? The emotion that I feel whereas my brain is masking it like, no, it's discipline, he needs to listen to you, all right? The emotion that I may be feeling, these are just imaginary scenarios I don't necessarily feel, I feel differently, but even worse sometimes. The thoughts, the emotion that I feel, I think it's anger. Well, anger is always secondary. There's always something behind anger. And when I go deeper, I say, oh, it's shame. Other people may see me as a bad mom or whatever. And in my body, I feel tense. I really feel tense. I may feel it here or in my hands. Now, what's the point of being aware of this? Once I can connect to myself, first of all, there is a huge power in what they call noting. I'm aware what's happening in me. So whatever I do with my kid or with other people, it's a response, not a reaction. It's not my amygdala, it's my prefrontal cortex, hopefully, right? Cortex. So how do I take care of myself and my emotions? It has a huge impact on how I'm going to deal with my kid, with my teenager, or generally speaking, whoever I'm dealing with in life. Because at the end of the day, if I am stuck in my thought patterns and whirlpool of emotions all the time, it's very difficult to have a meaningful relationship with somebody else, let alone my kid. Do you relate to that, or does it make sense? Anything to add or to comment on? Yeah, okay. And that's also important, I forgot to say. A mindful parent doesn't mean that you shouldn't be angry or you shouldn't be upset or you shouldn't feel that. No. First of all, what happens with any population, in mindfulness, a few of you, you use the term at the beginning, controlling our thoughts and emotions. That's what we all love to do. We don't control anything. We just validate them and let them be, but we don't get stuck with them, which means that I see my anger and I tell myself it's okay. I mean, I'm a human being. I can be angry at this very moment. But do I need to act based on anger? That's another thing. Again, if you remember your your kids when they were toddlers, the toddlers want your attention all the time. So they say, mama, 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 mama. The minute you say, okay, they don't have any question. So that's what the brain does. So it keeps telling you something, and the minute you say, oh, I saw you. This is anger. This is fear. Part of the job is done, so it just calms down. But so it's very important as a parent, I guess, not to feel guilty about all that we are feeling. The only thing is that we don't need to get stuck with that. Okay? Now, for adolescents, well, we all agree, I think, it's a time for uncertainty. There is so much unknown. You're exploring this world and everything. So how does, again, mindfulness helps us. What we do with teens usually, and I think it's huge, at least a few elements, is that to know their emotions, to validate them, respect their emotions, because unfortunately, especially with boys, everybody is telling them not to be sad, not to cry, not to do this, not to do that. The thing is that to accept and be aware of their emotions so that they can name their emotions, and then to have compassion for themselves. Self-compassion is a big thing. And self-compassion doesn't mean to be selfish, that the whole world is around me. Self-compassion means that I feel disappointed. It's fine. Now I need to see how I can take care of myself so that the next moment I don't feel disappointed maybe. So first of all, I need to know how disappointment feels in my body, in my thought, and in my emotions so that I have the roadmap in front of me. Then I say, it's okay. Everybody gets disappointed every now and then. Now what can we do? Now compare it with a situation that I am disappointed, but I think I'm angry with somebody. I don't know what emotions I'm experiencing, and I just either hurt myself, like emotionally, I'm not talking about physical hurt, or I just maybe have some not very healthy relationships with people around me. It could be friends or family or anything. So it's about awareness. We say pause. We learn to pause to see what's going on. We get present with that emotion or thought, whatever it is, and then we proceed. As easy as that. Okay, when we talk about it though. So, yeah. And And one last point about the breath. In mindfulness, we work a lot, as you have seen in the previous practice, with the breath. I should say something in parentheses that after COVID, because so many people were struggling with respiratory problems, of course, other anchors of attentions were introduced into the curriculum, but it's mostly the breath. But why the breath? Any idea why do we bring the attention all the time to the breath? Oxygen, yeah? Okay, I will.
Change your focus.
You change the focus, but why not your feet? Focus on the feet, focus on the brain or the eyes. Why the breath?
Heartbeat maybe goes down.
That also happens. So, first of all, breath is neutral. As long as we are alive and relatively healthy, we all breathe. So I cannot say my breath is better than yours or your breath better than me. No. So it takes the element of comparison and competition out of the. But the bigger reason is that, again, back to the brain, we have two major parts in brain. The sympathetic part of the brain and the parasympathetic. You've heard about it, right? So simply put, the sympathetic part of the brain is responsible for the actions that we decide to do. Like I decide to take this pen and put it back, or decide to talk. So It's like with intention, right? The parasympathetic part of the brain is the part that is functioning without thinking. Imagine that we were thinking about taking a breath. We would have died, I mean, because we forget, right? Or we are busy with other important things maybe. Or the heartbeat. So these are the parts that the brain does. These are the functions of the brain which go like in the parasympathetic system. Breathing, because it's not based on my decision, as long as I am alive, I breathe, is located in the parasympathetic part of the brain. So you bring your attention to the brain, to the breath, which means that you're activating the parasympathetic part of the brain, which is responsible for relaxation. It relaxes, it brings you down. So I want you to try when you go home, just out of curiosity, sit for 2 minutes, bring your attention to the breath. If you are a healthy person, there is no way that you have a heartbeat like faster than usual. You cannot sweat like as if you are in under stress. Immediately, the body starts to calm down. So that's the science why we go back to the breath. First of all, it's neutral. And secondly, because it is in the parasympathetic part of the brain, which is responsible for relaxation. Okay? And I want us to do another practice just towards the end. Is that okay? Yes. It's called 5 senses. You do it with your open eyes, but in silence. I want you in silence, and then you make a mental note. Take a note in your mind. Look around and note 5 things which seem interesting or unusual to you. Don't go for something big. Sometimes, oh, it's an interesting shade or a crack on the wall. I mean, it's a new building, but it's not a good example. But something more subtle. Shall we start? Just look around. It could be anything. And note 5 things that you see. You're done with this part? Now I want you to go for 4 things that you can feel. It might be your skin or the touch of a fabric that you're wearing or anything. 4 things that you can feel, and just feel them, really. Is it soft? Is it warm, cold, whatever? So through the touch, 4 things that you can get connected through the touch. Now, let's pay attention to 3 sounds that you can hear. It could be in the background or it could be the foreground, anything. 4 sounds that you can hear, 3 sounds that you can hear at this very moment. It could be anything. And if you're done with that, I want you to pay attention to 2 things that you can smell. It could be a smell in the air, it could be the cream or your perfume or anything around you, like the notebook in front of you. Just smell it. 2 things that you can smell. And the last one, I want you to taste something. It could be paying attention to the taste in your mouth, what you have eaten earlier today. Or just taste the air, I don't know. See if you can taste anything. If you have something with you, maybe get a bite and just taste it. While we were doing this, where was your mind? It's super simple. But you see how disconnected we are from our senses, like in a day-to-day life, and how they can bring us back and give that break to the mind. Not to think about anything other than what we are supposed to think about. So don't take for granted this body, the senses. I think we should do it with a sense of gratitude because it's a huge thing. It's a resource that we have, we are carrying with ourselves, and we are looking something big outside. Again, this is a practice that it's very simple, 5, 4, 3. I can share with Janar and she can share with you through the contact list that I think you have. Use it whenever you have time. You're waiting for somebody to come. You're waiting in an office and you don't know, and your brain is just maybe struggling with something. You don't even need to close your eyes, so nobody knows that you're practicing. Just take it as a game. And any practice that you do it relaxed, as a fun thing. There is nowhere to go. There is nothing to do. Just give yourself a chance of like having this as some kind of a fun, okay? So one last thing, and I will be done, is that what happens in a typical mindfulness class session is a mix of practice and theory, of course. So I always say that during the course, together we make a toolbox of different practices. And then later, depending on my living circumstances, even my taste, I may pick 1 or 2 of them, or over time it might change, and I practice that on a daily basis. Because remember, it's like going to the gym. It needs work and commitment. And then we always have 2 types of practices. We call it formal practices and informal practices. What is a formal practice? Is a practice that I need to sit or lie down and allocate a time and place to do the practice. It might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 30 minutes. Okay, this is something separate that I do. The informal practices are the practices that we don't need to allocate time and space to them. The things that we already do, we do with a mindful attitude, so that the mind gets used to this practice. And somehow, because at the end of the day, mindfulness for me is a lifestyle. It's a way of looking at things. It's not just doing the practice and like, then I'm done with it. It needs to be intertwined with everything that I do. And I think that's all for me. I would be very happy to take any question that you have, any comments or anything that you would like to share. But one more time, I want to thank you all because I enjoy talking about this. And happy to see you. You're welcome. Yes.
Yes, I have a question. So you mentioned several times during the discussion regarding when we talk to kids, for example, and how we react. Remember when you were saying that misbehaving?
Yes.
With the audience, let's say. In most of the cases, we react first,
Yes.
And then mindfulness comes later.
Exactly.
With the delay, so that we understand that we became angry just because of someone's opinion or whatever.
Yes.
And then we understand that it wasn't the right thing to do. So
Yes.
what would be your suggestion so that we, instead of reacting first, so that the mindfulness comes before the reaction?
Exactly. That's where the practice comes in. So the more I do the formal and informal practices, again, it needs like practice and it comes over time. So it's not like a magic wand that from now on I become mindful all the time. So when we train the mind to be in the present moment, when that scenario happens that my child is misbehaving or whatever, automatically I don't go into the reaction mode. I can pause and see, okay, this is the emotion that I'm feeling now. I'll give you another example. Every time I've done these taster sessions hundreds of times, but every time there are some butterflies in my stomach when I want to do it. So I was talking this morning with my husband and he said, why are you worried? I mean, it's like, you've done that before. I mean, but then what happens? If I'm not mindful, I can let it go on and on and on, maybe to the point that I get sick and I'm just like in a panic mode, okay? So the thing is that if I have been trained and I'm mindful, is that that's what I usually do. I tell myself, Samaneh, this is the anticipation of a new audience, and I name it for myself. I don't know these people. I don't know how they are going to relate or not to relate. The emotion so this is the thought pattern that I have. The emotion that I'm feeling right now is anxiety. It's not a stress. I feel anxious because I don't know, I'm dealing with the unknown. And I want you to try, the minute you say that out loud to yourself, because I know what I'm dealing with. So then I have a choice and I tell myself, okay, now that you're anxious, what are you supposed to do? Maybe you need to go for a quick run. Maybe you need to take a shower. Maybe you need to review your PowerPoint presentation one more time because this is what you're dealing with, okay? So I help myself. I take care of my anxiety without being anxious about why I'm anxious, you know? But when I'm not mindful, the thing is that I get stuck in that whirlpool. I don't know what's wrong. I keep telling everybody, what's wrong with me? I've done this hundreds of times. Why this is happening again? And I carry this on to this session and maybe afterwards. So what I'm saying, exactly this is what you're saying, that it's about the timeline because you get mindful once the damage is done usually, right? As we practice more and more, the mind learns to be mindful all the time so that it doesn't come next. To pause, be present with whatever is happening, and then take action. It might seem not very tangible because this is something that we have never done, because this is something that we have never been taught. How does that work? So what I can say is that the more we do the formal practices, the more we go to the gym, the better the mind gets in staying present and mindful, even when something happens, my child misbehaves or this or that happens. So that's why we say mindfulness is about choice. And look at the term mindful. Mindful, what does that mean? I am aware where my mind is. That's a big thing because most of the time we are not aware. I'm sure if you pause, most of you, while you're listening to me and while I'm talking to you, we are also having another thought at the back of our mind or another emotion. Oh, it's interesting. Oh, no, it's not interesting. Yeah. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? I'm talking, I have my own applications open at the back of my mind. You are doing the same, I guess. We are all doing the same. So the idea is to train more and more to close the unnecessary applications. So it's all about the practice, I would say. It comes down to the practice and the intention behind it. And of course, for all the practices, we keep saying we do it with a lot of compassion towards ourselves. Especially with teens, what I would always suggest is that the whole school system, the whole society is telling you to do this, you have to do this, you have to do that, you need to be this, you need to be that. That's a stress, right? This is something that you do for your own good, at your own pace, with a lot of compassion towards yourself. Because what is going to happen? What's the damage? You lose this breath, connect to the next one. You lose this breath. That's how we make resilience as well. You don't fail, you just start over. You don't fail, you just start over. So, yeah, that was a long answer for a short question. Yes. Anything else? All good? Okay.
I just have a thought. So all this practice, as we know, we can deal with ourselves.
Yes.
We cannot deal with somebody else. I mean, according to our kids, especially teenage all, shall we educate them also, make them more consciousness about this topic?
Yes. Yes.
So through which systems, especially for teens?
Yes, I think that's something to be discussed with Janara and iGreen. But the thing is that there is a very clear-cut, I would say, curriculum for adults for MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction. It's an 8-week program, like one session per week. And any MBSR teacher is supposed to follow that curriculum. For teens, what happens is that there are certain topics that we can work on, like self-compassion, which is, again, for me, self-awareness, self-compassion are just two major ones. Because first of all, you get to know yourself and your emotions without being ashamed of them or angry or why I'm angry. And then you do that with care and kindness to yourself. So yes, it's not that only the parents can do that, the teens and the kids can do that after a certain age, but with a different format. Definitely you cannot have a kid for 1 hour, 30 minutes doing any kind of meditative practices. They won't do that. So it needs modification, but it does exist. But I think the details maybe can be communicated later how this can be planned with you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes.
You're welcome.
It was very useful, and I just wanted to give an example because last time when we had a technical opening, some of our friends were here, and I was so worried. And the audience was like my close relatives and friends, or iGreen's friends, but it was the anxiety and stress took over me. So I couldn't even say I couldn't go even over 2 slides because I was like, because I had such a mess in my head. And when we had a meeting with Samaneh last time before this session, she gave us a few tips, and I remember that example you gave us about the line when you have, like, for example, your kid locked in the room and you cannot open the door, and you start having all these thoughts, oh my God, probably there is a lion, there is a, tiger or someone else. And I have this tendency, I think, in my head, probably it's like something natural, I don't know. So I thought about it, and I was like driving here today, I was like, okay, you have to make like small presentation. Let's control your emotions. Let's control your worry and anxiety. And to be honest, it helped. So Samaneh, thank you very much. I mean, for me personally, it helped a lot. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. Regarding your question, if you have any questions about our course with Samaneh, please ask at the reception. We'll let you know all the information. Also, all the information will be sent to the Instagram page. So stay linked and tuned, as they say. And thank you very much again.
Thank you.